Prince was a living paradox, an electrifying mix of funk, rock, and style that no one could touch. In heels and velvet, he made guitars weep and crowds explode, effortlessly swinging between genres like a magician with a mic. But beyond the glitter and mystique, he had opinions, fierce ones. While other stars hid behind polite interviews, Prince told you how he felt. Whether in a lyric, a glare, or a razor-sharp quote, he didn't just throw shade. He scorched egos and made sure the whole room felt the heat. So today, this isn't just a gossip session or a listicle on who Prince didn't vibe with. This is a deep dive into the musical tensions, artistic boundaries, and flat-out feuds that shaped the way Prince viewed the industry around him. Because if anyone had a radar for inauthenticity, it was him. And these 6 artists, they were the unfortunate blips on that radar. Now, before diving into the names, there's a moment worth remembering. Back in the mid-80s, Prince was at the peak of his powers. Purple Rain had turned him into a global icon. Fans were obsessing, critics were praising, and his record label Warner Brothers, well, let's just say that relationship was getting testy. Prince, in the middle of fighting for his creative control, was also making quiet judgments about the direction music was heading, and some artists, knowingly or not, became his examples of what not to do. Let's start with a name that might catch some off guard. Michael Bolton. Yes, the king of soft rock. The man whose power ballads melted hearts and sold millions somehow ended up on Prince's internal blacklist. And it wasn't personal, at least not in the usual tabloid sense. The issue, it seems, was deeper, stylistic, philosophical even. Back in 1991, Bolton's cover of When a Man Loves a Woman was absolutely everywhere. You couldn't escape it. Elevator, mall, car radio, boom, there it was. But to Prince, this wasn't soul. According to music journalist Alan Light, Prince once told his bandmates, that man wouldn't know soul if it slapped him in his processed hair. Ouch. And in true Prince fashion, that one-liner didn't stay private for long. It made the rounds in studio circles faster than one of his iconic guitar solos. What rubbed Prince the wrong way wasn't just Bolton's style, it was what that style symbolized. To him, Bolton's music was sanitized soul, repackaged and smoothed out for maximum commercial appeal. While Prince was busy taking creative risks and blending genres in ways no one else dared to, Bolton, in Prince's eyes, was selling the safe, polished version of what once had grit and heart. Prince gave an interview to a Dutch magazine in '93, where he said, "There's people who take the heart out of music, sterilize it, and sell it back to you." He didn't name names. He rarely did. But insiders claimed Bolton was very much one of the targets. It never escalated to a public feud. There were no diss tracks or awkward run-ins on award show red carpets, but the distance between them was intentional. At one industry event in 1994, Prince reportedly refused to be photographed with Bolton. He whispered to an assistant, "Some associations you can't wash off." And Bolton? He never seemed to know about the shade, later calling Prince a musical genius, which honestly just adds to the irony. In Prince's world, commercial success meant nothing if it didn't come with artistic depth. To him, Bolton wasn't an enemy. He was just the embodiment of a musical approach that Prince spent his whole life pushing against. Now, when it comes to Madonna, the story gets even more layered. Both icons, both revolutionary in their own right, both draped in sexuality, religious symbolism, and massive cultural influence. On paper, they should have been allies, collaborators, maybe even co-headliners on a tour that would have sold out in minutes, but that never happened. In fact, when Warner Brothers floated the idea of a duet between them in 1985, Prince reportedly shot it down hard. According to his longtime sound engineer Susan Rogers, he dismissed the idea flatly, saying, "She's got about as much musicality as this soundboard." Not exactly the warmest endorsement. For Prince, authenticity was everything, and Madonna, in his view, wasn't being real, at least not musically. He saw her constant reinvention and shock tactics as strategic moves rather than genuine artistic evolution. In a 1987 interview, he commented that musical innovation was dying because people were more concerned with selling images than creating them. Again, no names, but the reference was clear to those who knew the context. The tension between them reached a peak in 1994 at one of Prince's infamous aftershows. Madonna showed up, and during the performance, Prince locked eyes with her and tweaked the lyrics to his song Sexy MF, reportedly saying, "She's not sexy." She left the venue shortly after. But here's where it gets even messier. because despite the jabs and the snark, there was still a weird, begrudging respect between them. When Prince changed his name to that infamous symbol in 1993, Madonna quipped he was now the artist formerly known as Relevant, Savage, but later she did call him a genius. Still, behind the shade and soundbites, Prince seemed to see her as someone playing a role rather than living one. He reportedly told his drummer Bobby Z, "She knows exactly what she's doing. Every move, every outfit, every word. Nothing is real." For someone like Prince, who bled authenticity in every note, that kind of approach was the opposite of everything he stood for. Then came Justin Timberlake. Now this one had layers: generational tension, cultural critique, and more than a little ego. The friction started sometime around 2006. Timberlake's Sexy Back was ruling the charts, and at an Emmy party, Prince reportedly made a jab saying, "Sexy never left." A small comment, but in music, shade is an art form, and everyone picked up on it. Things escalated further when Timberlake released Give It To Me in 2007, featuring the line, "If Sexy never left, then why is everybody on my stuff?" That line wasn't vague, it was aimed, and Prince didn't let it slide. What reportedly bothered him the most was the way Timberlake's early solo work, particularly his Justified album, leaned so heavily on the Minneapolis sound, a sonic fingerprint that Prince pioneered. Produced by the Neptunes and Timbaland, it had funk, falsetto, and slick production, but to Prince, it felt like someone taking from his creative DNA without giving credit. Producer Jimmy Jam shared that Prince once said, "He's taking my whole vibe and not even acknowledging where it came from." It wasn't about imitation, it was about the erasure of roots. Prince wasn't just a performer, he was a builder of sound, and seeing someone profit off that sound without homage, that cut deep. And then there was the moment at the Golden Globes in 2007. Timberlake, accepting an award on Prince's behalf, crouched down to imitate his famously short stature, funny to some, deeply offensive to Prince. "Some things you don't joke about," he reportedly said to a bandmate afterward. Despite all of this, Timberlake later performed a tribute to Prince at the 2018 Super Bowl, in Minneapolis no less. It left fans divided. Some saw it as respect, others, a poorly timed apology wrapped in production. Prince's issue with Timberlake wasn't personal in the petty sense, it was personal in the cultural sense. He saw Timberlake as someone who borrowed style, swagger, and sound from black music culture, especially his own legacy, without anchoring it in understanding or credit. Now let's talk Maroon 5. Yes, the pop rock chart machines led by Adam Levine found their way onto Prince's radar, and not in a good way. It all centered around their 2012 cover of Kiss, one of Prince's most iconic, minimalist, funk-laced tracks. Where the original thrived on space and groove, Maroon 5's version layered on production, pop sheen, and extra instrumentation. Prince, reportedly, was not amused. A former Paisley Park engineer claimed that when he heard the cover, Prince said, "They took all the spaces out of the music. The spaces are as important as the notes." To understand that critique, it's important to understand Prince's artistic process. When he made Kiss, he deliberately stripped it down. He removed layers until only the essential rhythm remained. It was raw, funky, and brilliant in its restraint. So when Maroon 5 dressed it up with modern pop textures, Prince felt like they missed the point entirely. At a club show in 2013, he reportedly introduced the song by saying, "Some songs don't need to be covered. Some songs need to be undressed, not dressed up. No name drop necessary." Everyone knew. Then came the twist. Adam Levine claimed in a radio interview that Prince had approved the cover. That apparently sent things over the edge. According to his former manager Albert Magnoli, Prince called him immediately after hearing the interview and said, "I never approved anything. They never reached out." Lawsuits were even considered, but Prince ultimately decided it wasn't worth the energy. Next up, the Black Eyed Peas. This one wasn't about a single song or incident, it was about what the group represented to Prince, a shift in music that valued perfection over passion. Around 2009, the Peas were on fire. Songs like Boom Boom Pow and I Got a Feeling were everywhere, but Prince wasn't having it. He reportedly attended an event where Will.i.am was DJing and left within 10 minutes. To his inner circle, he allegedly remarked, "That's not music, that's a marketing meeting." Harsh, but very Prince. In an interview around 2010, he doubled down on the critique of hyper-produced, auto-tuned music, saying, "When you quantize everything and auto-tune the soul out of it, what are you left with? Plastic." Again, no direct name drop, but the implication was clear. He refused to participate in a promotional shoot for Super Bowl performers that would have included the Peas. And after watching their Grammy performance, he reportedly told his band, "Some people make music, some people manufacture it. One will last forever, the other has an expiration date." What really grated Prince wasn't just the sound, it was the intention behind it. He saw a generation of artists chasing hits like algorithms, packaging songs with formulas instead of feeling. He once told a studio engineer that music without flaws is music without humanity. And in his view, the Peas had turned the studio into a factory. There were also reports that Prince turned down a collaboration request from Will.i.am, reportedly saying, "I don't jam with spreadsheets." That line alone was passed around backstage like a proverb. A former Paisley Park musician claimed Prince would use the Peas as a kind of cautionary tale during rehearsals, warning his band not to lose the groove by over-editing. He even referenced them indirectly during a private concert, pausing mid-set to say, "You all want to hear live music or that boom boom machine stuff?" The crowd roared, and Prince smirked like he already knew the answer. There was no hatred in the classic sense, no tabloid war, no personal beef, just deep philosophical opposition. Prince believed in elevation through music. The Peas, to him, symbolized regression through overproduction. To many fans, that line was blurry. But to Prince, it was crystal clear. It wasn't about ego, it was about essence. And he wasn't alone. Several veteran artists echoed similar concerns, but Prince voiced it loudest, not to belittle, but to remind everyone what music could be. He believed a single, imperfect guitar note played with heart was more powerful than 100 flawlessly engineered beats. This wasn't about genre snobbery, it was about soul, spontaneity, the sacred spark of sound. And to Prince, the Black Eyed Peas were proof that pop had lost its pulse. Even during casual hangouts, Prince reportedly used their chart toppers as background noise examples, cautioning young producers to listen past the beat and hear what's missing. The Peas may have dominated charts, but Prince wasn't counting plays. He was counting purpose. That's what separated him from the pack. Not just his sound, but the standard he upheld. To him, the Peas weren't villains. They were a symptom. And symptoms, he believed, should be treated, not celebrated. That brings us to the final name, the one that stung the most, Eric Clapton. This wasn't just a beef. This was a fundamental clash of ideologies wrapped in a guitar cable. It started in the mid-80s, after Purple Rain turned Prince into a global phenomenon. Clapton, when asked about Prince in an interview, reportedly dismissed him as all flash and no substance. He added that real blues came from life experience, not just technical ability. That comment made its way back to Prince, and it stuck. Years later, in 2004, the two crossed paths at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Prince performed a now legendary solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, stealing the show and flinging his guitar into the air in a move that screamed, "Top that." Before that performance, he reportedly told Sheila E., "Tonight, they'll know I don't just wear purple, I play it." Their tension wasn't about fame or even technical skill, it was about what the guitar was supposed to do. Clapton treated it like a holy relic. Prince? He made it bend to his will. He once said, "Some people worship their guitars. I make mine worship me." And when asked about Clapton in 2010, Prince reportedly said, "Eric's technically proficient, sure, but has he ever made you dance? Has he ever made you want to change your name or question your sexuality? Music should transform you, not just impress you." There were whispers that Prince once refused to attend a blues festival where Clapton was headlining. He allegedly told a friend, "I already know what a scale sounds like. I don't need to hear it for 90 minutes. During rehearsals, he'd occasionally mock Clapton's playing style, strumming a slow, predictable riff and saying, "You feel that? That's what a nap sounds like." At Paisley Park, engineers recalled Prince stopping a playback mid-session, shaking his head and saying, "That's getting too Clapton. Strip it back, find the funk." For Prince, Clapton symbolized the old guard, technically masterful, emotionally distant. He respected the craft, but not the constraint. He once told a reporter, "Music isn't just something you play, it's something you bleed." Clapton plays clean. I play messy because life is messy. Even in private circles, Prince would challenge young guitarists, telling them, "If you can play a solo and not break a sweat or a heart, you're doing it wrong. Don't be Eric, be electric." There was no denying Clapton's impact, but Prince saw it as rooted in preservation, not progression. To him, Clapton's blues belonged in a museum. Prince's, on the dance floor, in a revolution, on a stage surrounded by mirrors and lasers. At an after-party once, a journalist asked him if Clapton was still God, referencing the old graffiti. Prince smiled and replied, "If he's God, then I must be the burning bush." It wasn't just shade. It was philosophy. Clapton stood for tradition. Prince stood for transformation, and in his world, evolution always trumped legacy. To this day, fans still argue over who was better, but Prince never cared about being better. He cared about being different. And in that purple prism he lived in, Clapton's blues were just black and white. For Prince, music had to move the soul. Anything less was noise. These 6 artists in his eyes symbolized everything music shouldn't become, and calling them out was his way of defending the artistry he lived for. That purple bar was high, and for Prince, it had to be. Because music, in his world, wasn't just sound, it was spirit. If you made it this far, you're probably as fascinated by Prince's complex brilliance as the rest of the world. So now it's your turn. Who do you think Prince would love today? And who would make him roll his eyes from the purple heavens? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into music's most unforgettable stories.